Hello, welcome to another episode of CRT Sound System, and we're got episode 77, and we're talking about
Wow.
Final Fantasy 9. And got Reese here as always. Reese, how are you?
Incredible. Incredible. Can't wait to talk Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah, same. It's been one we've been talking about doing for a while, and we've got Mike joining us as a guest. Mike, how are you? No, have we lost Mike?
Mike.
I sorry about that. I am just grateful that I lived long enough to appear on this podcast a second time.
Nice. Based.
We appreciate you coming on. I mean, you did a while back say that you had dibs on this, and so
Yeah. It's this one's near and dear to me, and it's like genuinely one of the best soundtracks in any RPG. So
yeah, it's a really special soundtrack for a very special game. I didn't realize when I decided I wanted to do this one like a couple of weeks ago that it's the 25th anniversary of the game, like last week, and I feel incredibly old. I didn't even play this when it came out. Like I played it in like 2001, 2002. I'm going to say. But even at that, that's still a long ass time ago.
No, the last few months on social media has just been fan artists going absolutely to town on tribute pieces. It has been phenomenal.
Oh, that's
good.
great. That also makes me feel incredibly old. I bought this like the moment I could get to a GameStop. I don't think I pre-ordered it, but I absolutely was just like, oh, Final Fantasy, the thing that matters most in my life, has another one. Let's do this.
Yeah, I played it the year it came out. So I just started secondary school. I was 14, and that should tell you about. Oh boy.
Most elderly podcast on the internet. It's a proud title we hold.
Yeah, we're definitely pushing on. Like, I think the main reason I didn't play this for a little while was because when I initially started playing PlayStation games, I probably mentioned this in the Final Fantasy VIII episode, but I was doing it on an emulator on like a Pentium 4 Dell,
Wow.
and it could just about manage Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, but it could not play Final Fantasy IX. But as soon as I got my hands on a PS1 that someone sold me for not a lot of money, one of the first things I did was get my hands on a copy of Final Fantasy IX to play it.
Nice.
And yeah, loved it. I would say probably my least favorite of the three PlayStation games, but that's hardly a knock against it. Those three games, I think, are all incredible.
That's how we know you're a Final Fantasy VIII fan.
Yeah.
Me too, for the record. But
I love. I am also Final Fantasy VIII is dearest to my heart, but 9 is just so expansive, and I don't know. Like it feels a little bit more in line with the older ones, just with the cartoony characters and stuff.
Yeah.
That this one is like I have often said that while Final Fantasy VIII is my favorite, 9 might be the best one. And I don't know if that statement holds up, but that's kind of my vibe with it.
That is a very common take from just from a very I'm not confident enough to say a majority, because God knows what gamers are like, but a great many people would say my favorite one is insert game here, but I think Final Fantasy IX is the best one. And
I wouldn't go along with that necessarily myself. I don't think it's the best one, but it's a joyful game. Like it's a game that really sort of like, and not just in terms of it being sort of a celebration of the history of Final Fantasy, but just like the characters are so good. Like, there's a tone to this game that I think the others don't quite reach. In terms of just having like just everybody's having a nice time, even with the horrible shit that's going on.
Like as I was about to say, 'cause you say it's a joyful game, but literally the through line of the entire game is death.
Yeah. But you know, it's
100%.
a game about death and identity that I think sort of you know, sort of it wants to celebrate life.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, you know, it acknowledges death, and it says, you know, it is about death and sort of what we leave behind when we die. And like, you know, that's obviously quite a dark theme, but like I think just with characters like Zidane and Steiner and things like that, that are kind of
Yeah.
you know, it's and even Vivi, where it's just like their whole deal just becomes like, you know, like living your life to the best way you can is the most important
Yeah.
way to sort of to defeat death, essentially.
100%. The game tells you you're going to die one day. That means you just got to overcome your anxiety and just make that phone call and order a pizza. It's you'll get a pizza at the end of it. I know being on the phone is scary.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to touch on like both of your points, like uh God, what were what were your points? Uh because one thing is, yeah, it is very openly a celebration of the Final Fantasy series to date, and
Mm.
in that regard, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Because every time I go back to it, I learn more things about, and I find more deliberate parallels. I find more references. I find so many more things to appreciate, and it's like you mentioned that, yeah, you felt like it was a throwback to the sort of like the more traditional Final Fantasy games, and yeah, like the three games preceding this were all sort of Magitech, Technopunk, Cyberpunk settings, and they were much more sort of uh grounded in a sense of modernity, and like Final Fantasy VIII especially, I think
Mm.
a lot of people would have found themselves relating to the characters more easily, because it literally takes place in a in a school. They're teenagers. They dress in modern clothes and all that. And then now suddenly here we're back in a high fantasy steampunk setting, and it's and it was refreshing after those two games,
Mm.
which I love them both, but like it just, yeah, it was a like a very very different take, um, and on top of that as well, then we got our protagonist is the last couple of protagonists were uh very moody, angsty, sort of like uh late teens, early 20s adult men, and then and then the like contrast, we have this sort of teenaged sort of wannabe ladies man thief who thinks he's way hotter shit than he is, and it's a breath of fresh air after those two.
Yeah. Zidane it's
Yeah.
always a joy to watch Zidane eat shit when he thinks he's fucking, yeah.
10,000%. I feel like it's a Final Fantasy. I don't know a good singular vocab word to describe it, but it feels like the most coherent thematically in a way. Like I think a lot of, especially when you get to the end game, I feel like the reflection on what Final Fantasy is like a lot more grounded than sort of like the cosmic or demonic supervillainy you kind of get, and that's there. That's certainly there.
Mm.
But I feel like just like the representation of death and the fears around it, it hit really hard, compared to say something like Kefka, who is my favorite Final Fantasy villain, but you're just like, oh, this dude sucks. That's the kind of the thematic end of what he's doing. And not saying Final Fantasy VI doesn't have gravitas, because it does. It is such a moving story, but I think Final Fantasy IX is a bit more, for lack of a better word, literary. Like, and I really appreciate its whole deal, and just sort of like, as we're going to hear in the soundtrack, it is just like excellence top to bottom, and it's exciting. It's a great entry, and I think a lot more of an interesting entry than what would come uh, later. Not slagging those, but I think it's really at the end of an era. It's the obviously with the
100%.
introduction
Yeah.
of the new technologies and stuff. It's going to be the way that way, anyways. But I think it's just like really the swan song for the golden or silver age of Final Fantasy, however you want to define it.
Yeah. And that's that's obviously intentional to the whole design of it as well. Like, it's
Oh yeah.
constantly calling back. And one thing I always found really interesting about that, and like maybe more so for you and me, Mike, and people who played this in Europe, where like there was no history of Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
like
I was
3
gonna bring
years
that
prior
up.
to that.
Yeah,
like,
you're dead on. Like, I mean, like, granted, like, Final Fantasy has a pretty shallow presence in the West, prior to the Final Fantasy Origins re-releases that they started doing in the 2000s. But
which were after
yeah,
this.
which were well after this.
Yeah.
The North America, they got Final Fantasy 1, they got Final Fantasy 4 in with the name Final Fantasy 2, and they got Final Fantasy 6 with the
Yeah.
name Final Fantasy 3. But our first game in the numbered Final Fantasy series was 7. And we're like, well, there were 7 of these? What?
That's crazy. That is
Yeah.
crazy.
So like, so for us, like, so much of the the history and just the effectively the series wide lore that's present in Final Fantasy IX throughout is just completely lost on us because we just don't have a grounding in it at all.
Absolutely. Here in America, it was a little bit similar to much lesser degree, because it went from 3 to 7. And the only video game fact that me and all my little goblin gamer friends knew was that, like, actually 3 is 6 in Japan.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Actually, Tom, here's one for your 8 loving nerd brain that you may or may not already know. Is that in 8 there was a direct reference to Final Fantasy 5 that was edited out in the localization specifically because nobody playing the localization would
Would
get
have
it
understood it.
because 5 never came out, and
Wow.
that's when Gilgamesh shows up after Odin's killed and grabs the sword, and he says the line he says, like, it was like, was it you, is one of the things he says, but in Japanese it was it you but cut off,
Oh.
referring to he was
Referring to
definitely talking
parts.
about Bart's, but like,
Yeah.
who the hell's that? We wouldn't know. So
Yeah. That's funny.
and that was and then but the 9 actually, and then continues what the tradition that began in Final Fantasy VIII with Gilgamesh showing up again, because the joke with him is that Gilgamesh was a recurring antagonist in 5, and he has since been dimension hopping and showing up literally as himself in a whole bunch of other Final Fantasy games ever since. He's even been retroactively going
Mini
back to the
episodes.
remakes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's just showing up everywhere. It's great. Always love when Gilgamesh shows up. I wasn't aware of that specific reference, but that's quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, and with that as well, even like one, I remember reading it. I don't know, was it an article or something recently, possibly for like the 25th, but just talking about like even stuff that was referring to games that were released in America. A lot of it was not translated the same, so they had a lot of struggle sort of making it so that the references were understandable, but also sort of trying to like.
That's your the legacy of Woolsey, because like most of what people like Kefka is completely original to the English localization. Most of that wasn't in the Japanese version. He's just a clown.
Okay. That's interesting. But even just like sort of like place names and things like that.
There's
and like the names of bosses and translations for things like that, where they were
I've
trying
got
to
a
sort of.
whole I've got a whole list of them though, that I'll drop at some point when when it comes up. But yeah, there's a good number of references that are not quite exactly the same as they were in the games they first appeared in the English localizations. But if you are understanding and literate enough, you'll get them regardless.
Yeah.
A lot has been made of the Final Fantasy VI translation. I remember, I don't know if this might be a Tim Rogers thing, and I apologize for invoking him, but he talks about the arguments on forums back in the day on how the localization should be, and there was even like a contingent that's like you shouldn't put them in like English sentences. You should have like the Japanese kanji like concepts just ordered one after the other, and just like let the English speakers absorb it that way, because that's the true poetry, man. And I think that's really funny. That makes me love it all the more.
It is it is amusing, to be sure.
That's a new one. I've never heard that specific way to be like, no, you have to be as accurate as possible, right down to just translating the pictograms for concepts. Like, we didn't have emojis at that point. What were we going to do with that information?
Exactly.
But damn you, Tim Rogers, whoever that is.
Don't never learn who that is.
Oh, I'm not asking. Don't you worry.
Okay, don't worry. We weren't telling. Let's move on to some music. We can't.
Let's do some music.
We have to wash our mouth out.
We gotta do some penance now while for bringing up Tim Rogers. All right, so first block of tracks. I have Crossing Those Hills, Treno, The Sleepless City, Far Away in the Twilight, and Fossil Rue. we were saying just at the start there that when I initially put this playlist together, I completely forgot to include the world map theme, and I was a fool for not including it. So thanks for letting me know that I should have included it. Just because, it's great. And as I say, I'm not a big fan of Melodies of Life. I think it's a bit crap, but the melody itself is nice. So it's nice when it shows up as a leitmotif throughout the game in other places.
Yeah.
But Crossing Those Hills is lovely, and it's just a nice little sort of a little dinky little synth melody that goes through it.
It's I very recently I found a musician on YouTube who she's a harpist, and she makes harp covers of loads and loads of particularly Final Fantasy music. Huge Final Fantasy fan, and like she has an entire collection of 7 pieces and 9 pieces, and she did the the classic YouTuber solo musician thing where she splits the screen to show multiple recordings of her playing different pieces of and so she's playing Crossing Those Hills on this on the harp, and I heard it played this way and thought, this is the way the song was always meant to be played. Like the core melody from the in the sort of the initial sort of stanzas of it. It's I've never been able to place them because they always sounded so strange and ethereal, the sounds that were used in that song. But then I heard that as that's a harp. Those are harp notes being played, and I had absolutely no way of knowing because
I'm familiar with that YouTuber. I think she's on Shorts a lot, so I assume she's quite popular.
Yeah, her name is
and it's great. It's great.
Her name is Harpsiboard, as in harpsichord, but with the word board instead. And she's it's incredible. I'd strongly recommend checking out her stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think you'd be forgiven for push for this your lapse, because there is just so much music in this, and it's been winnowed down from Nobuo Uematsu said that he composed 160 tracks for this, and they were like, "Dog, and they apparently asked him for very little." They were just like, it's one for each character, a battle theme, a town theme, and he just like came back with just like this like zip drive after zip drive, just like pouring out of a semi truck.
Yeah, Uematsu's on the record as having said that this is his favorite soundtrack in the Final Fantasy series. It's his favorite one that he worked on, and given what you just said, yeah, I believe it. They didn't ask him for much, but he just kind of got lost in the creative process. Yeah. So he was clearly in the zone for this one.
You read the interviews with him about Final Fantasy IX, and he was like, he would work like 12, 14-hour days every day for a year. And he was like, and when it was over, he wasn't like, oh, I get a break. He was just like, my life is empty now. I'm experiencing loss. And that's why he said in an interview, that's why he has assistants from other composers, because he couldn't do that again. Like, it was like an emotional rift for him. And like he has a whole compelling narrative where he like went to Hawaii and he was like, I cannot compose medieval music in Hawaii, so he made Square pay for like a huge European trip where he where he went all over, and the good thing they did, and and composed what we've heard, and it's it's incredible, and the way he describes it wasn't like diligent, hardworking, grinding out this music. It was like feverish. It's just like he had so much music inside of him to get out.
This was a labor of passion. It was just like he just became he just became a conduit for the music to come out of him.
100%. It's like a Doctor Who episode. It's just kind of getting the music. I know it's
Yeah.
crazy.
No,
Uh,
it is blatantly apparent that he left a piece of himself in this game.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and to all our benefits, to be
Yeah,
honest.
100%. Great interviews to read from him because he's always like sounds genuinely grateful whenever anybody says they like the soundtrack. He's like, "Oh, phew, okay, it works, good." And you know, that I was reading one where people asked him like, "Oh, do you have any other influences?" And he's like, "Well, everything I'm listening to. Like, I just listen to ABBA's greatest hits, and I think we have a lot in common." It's just like these, you're such a silly goose.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
I like as well, just like compared to the sort of the more MIDI sounds of 7 and 8, like the the different instrumentation that he uses on this, and like a lot of stuff that's sort of representing harps and lots of more medieval sounding stuff. Yeah, I do think it really brings it back to sort of a nice little bass line. For like the setting and for everything, and I like that he sort of reintroduces themes from previous games, sort of when playing around in other tracks and stuff like that. It's a real treat. I say I do think probably I do prefer 8 a little bit more, but like it's a matter of sort of degrees. Like really is there's so little space between them.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting listening to the music evolve throughout the Final Fantasies as well, because you
Mm,
feel like I feel like you can listen to him master these technologies or like compression systems or whatever, and then he has to move on to like a new technology standard, and it's just like, oh, you don't have the same sort of limitations and as you did in 6, but also
mm,
you need to compose the music in such a way that you're not going to have a loading screen. This is something he talked about. You're not going to have a loading screen at the start of each battle or something like that. So you still need to have things compressed in a certain way and compose around that. And I think by
yeah.
9, like you just see total mastery where, he just fucking goes Super Saiyan.
Although it is always fun when you listen to the battle theme on its own. It really stretches out that intro.
Well,
um,
yeah,
for
the
obvious reasons.
yeah, like that I mean the all that build up that and then the end of I I am not a classically trained musician. I don't know the terminology very well, but you have the the I want to say like like 20-24 bars of build up at the start of
Yeah.
both the battle theme and the boss theme, and then the beat drops. There is a sort of like a bit of fanfare, and then it gets into the core melody of it, and that is the cue for the monsters in the party to appear on the field.
Yeah.
Um, because that is how long it took them to load in general. So
Yeah.
um, when
Yeah,
I
because like it's the same sort of that sort of rolling bass line coming back from 4, 5, and 6, which is like a nice little reference that he brought it back, but then also it goes on for so much longer than it does in those games.
yeah, for sure.
um, and like we talked about it sort of, I don't know, was it before recording or during one of the breaks, but just like the speed difference between the PAL and the NTSC version meant that like a battle would take so fucking long if you're playing on the PAL version. It was a real slog.
To anybody listening who successfully acquired the Excalibur 2 on a PAL copy of the game, I hope that you have found peace in your life.
Yeah, that is. Oh boy, that's a tall order. As I think I mentioned to you a few weeks ago, Mike, but my most recent playthrough on the Switch version even with all the like battles turned off and the fucking, because I just wanted to go through it to experience the story again. I was like, I'm not dealing with any of the battle bullshit. I had all of that shit turned on. I was still late to the fourth disc to get that, and I was like, how the
Yeah.
fuck? And like by like 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, I can either continue from where I'm going or revert to a save from 3 hours ago and try it again. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
No,
Yeah.
if you, like, I mean, if you're a purist and insist on doing it that way because it's the correct way to do it, well, then Godspeed. That's your prerogative. But there is I forget the name of the mod itself, but it's a mod that's applied to the game on the Steam version of the game using the Memoria launcher, and there's all manner of like mods and things that you can make to to tailor the experience, and like such as like speeding up the beginning of the battles and so on, but and you can and all the usual things like fast forwarding, turning off encounters and all that kind of thing. But one of the big
Yeah.
ones is disabling the in-game timer on the Excalibur 2. So you just turn it off, and then you can
And it's just
arrive at
there.
Yeah.
and it's just there, and you get the little letter to Gilgamesh from his buddy Enkidu, and it's like the actually you did have you ever seen that yourself?
No, I've never
Yeah.
seen it. No.
Mhm.
Enkidu, I'm pretty sure Enkidu is another reference to the Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm
It
pretty
is,
sure.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so yeah, it's just like he just basically like Gilgamesh, Gil Aniki. I found the sword you were looking for. It had a stupid name with like something two at the end. So and it looked all like dingy with jewels and stuff like that. It was your kind of thing. So so I left it here for you. I took the Excalibur instead.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I read a guide that was like, if you happen to miss the Excalibur 2, now you have two options. You can use a mod to futz with the time, or if you leave the game on for 2.5 years, that
Yeah.
will
It'll
fuck up
reset
the
the
timer and reset it back to 0, and then you can get it. So, so there's legit ways to 100% the game for
Yeah.
real.
That's fantastic. I love that.
I'd completely forgotten about that. I just so I it is completely inevitable that somebody has actually done that successfully, and I just who makes these people?
Yeah, come on the show. Whoever did that, come on the show. We'll talk about the B-sides to the Final Fantasy IX soundtrack.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I think like we mentioned it before we started recording as well. It's just that the it's one of the earliest ways to get max damage. So it's also kind of annoying that like if you're really sort of trying to rush through the game, it is also a way to sort of help you get those last few hours even quicker, just by sort of being able to just use whatever Steiner's ability is that does the massive damage.
Shock.
And
Single most powerful attack in the game.
what is
and
it, minus strike or whatever it's called?
Oh no, well no, minus strike is just it's literally just it's math. It does the difference. It does the difference in his max and his current HP to the enemy. No, shock.
Oh,
It's just
shock!
like
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the one. Yeah,
It just does max damage straight up. It's
yeah,
the strongest single attack in the game.
yeah. And like by the end of the game, there's plenty of ways to do max damage with
Yeah.
pretty much every character. But like it's certainly the earliest place that you can get that. So like there is an advantage to doing it, even though it sucks.
I'll tell you another reason to getting the Excalibur 2 and using the mod to do it. It's mainly just because as we all know, especially as we get on in our years, you got to have a bit more respect for your time.
Yeah.
And if you want to go through to the end of the game, have all the abilities, have all the skills learned, have your desired custom party. Well, the only way to do that, if you don't get the Excalibur 2, is to do all of the chocobo hunting on the overworld.
Yeah.
Because that's the only other way you can get another weapon that teaches him that skill.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I've done it before. I don't need to prove anything to anybody.
I've done that on 2 separate playthroughs of doing the Chocobo Hot and Cold. And like that's a fun enough mini game, but oh my god, once you get to like hour 4 or 5 of it, you really just want to be done with it forever.
And then it's like, hey, now go find the magic pixel in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. Oh fuck that part as well. Yeah.
There is so much in the game. Like
Yeah.
It really is like a different era of thinking about JRPGs.
Well,
Absolutely,
then again,
yeah.
like this is again, we're talking about the same game that at the very start of the game, there's a lot of the key items in this game are basically the proto form of achievements. The and there is one such achievement you can get for I think playing jump rope with some children in the
To do like
as
100 or whatever with the
I think it's
jump
100
rope,
or
yeah.
more, and you get the jump rope king or something, and in the very next game, I find it's probably the one. I think Final Fantasy X has probably the least respect for your time out of any of the games that came before it.
100%, yeah.
Like you're talking about you're talking about the kind of grinding you have to do to fight the dark eidolons and stuff like the dark aeons and such. But then you have like I remember Lulu's ultimate weapon. In order to you have to get the weapon, and then you have to find 2 key items to to unseal it or whatever. And one of hers, you had to dodge 200 lightning bolts in a row in the desert. It was like, I'm sorry, I didn't have the patience for that when I was a teenager. Hell no.
I did. When I did that, I got to like 192 and I missed. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm never doing this again.
You are correct as I make these claims about Final Fantasy IX, and then I think about the amount of Blitzball I played, and Final Fantasy X certainly is its own era.
I would play 10 times the amount of Blitzball than fucking Tetramaster, I'll tell you that.
Oh wow! I don't know if I got the same.
Tetramaster sucks. Fuck it, it's the worst. I hate it so
much. I mean, it's like what's good compared to Triple Triad? Nothing.
It's fortunate that the Tetramaster just did not matter as much as Triple Triad did.
Yeah, you don't need it. Although I was looking at the mod you mentioned, Mike, and there is a mod to just replace Tetramaster with Triple Triad.
Incredible. Oh, that rips! Oh god, that's a must install.
Sounds like I just got to replay the game with fucking Triple Triad instead of.
Seriously, like I had designs to replay the game before recording this podcast today, and before I knew it, 2 weeks just disappeared, and it was like, oh well. So I haven't gotten around to doing it yet, but I mean, I like that is the definitive way to play the game by all accounts from all the super fans I know. And the one thing I just have one my dream, right? I want to play a version of Final Fantasy IX where the Thunder Slash is a functioning attack.
Oh, that doesn't work. It doesn't do anything, if I recall, or is it just?
It's a physical attack that's programmed as a spell, and so basically, it
calculates the damage on the wrong stat or whatever.
It causes it to have a hit rate of 0. So it's devastating when Beatrix, unreal character by the way, just that triumphant moment where she switches sides to fight alongside you against the tyrannical queen, and you finally get to use this cool ass Thunder Slash move that she was bodying you with in 3 fights prior, and you go to the menu, you hit it, and it misses, and it misses again and again, and it broke my tiny heart.
I do that. Like that's such a thing for Final Fantasy games at the time as well, though. So I think I didn't really notice it because it's just like it's the same as when like you fight Leo in Final Fantasy VI and he's insanely powerful, and then you get him in your party and he's like 10% as good. It always feels like such a troll move to do that.
Yeah,
In these games, and yeah, I remember with Beatrix being the same, being like, "Oh fuck, are they going to do this shit to me again?" And
Oh, I'll tell you
it's a pity
again.
you can't get Beatrix to be with you for the whole game, honestly, because
Yeah,
she
but
fucking rules.
she does.
Yeah.
I mean, I really really love how they what became of her character basically. It's like
Mm.
basically it's like so having gone back to the game after playing Final Fantasy IV, you've recognized that she is in many ways a direct sort of a direct sort of import of Cecil from Final Fantasy
Mm.
IV. She is the top the top soldier of of this despotic tyrant who is going around conquering and destroying, and he follows leaders with follows orders without question until a certain point where where then decide to change sides. And she's also
Yeah.
and then her airship, the Red Rose, is a direct reference to the Red Wings, which he was the commander of.
Oh yeah.
And they're both paladins.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a paladin arc.
Yeah, and then just and yeah, so she from having and one thing that I really liked about it is because you so the first two discs in particular, lots and lots of devastating war and slaughter. But one thing I noticed going back recently was that the Alexandrian soldiers were just basically beating their opponents into submission, but the black mages that the queen was using, they were the ones that were just straight up murdering
Yeah.
everyone. So you realize that and Beatrix left you alive 3 times. Like she's not interested in just in just murdering putting you down. She just
You're
like,
just in
yeah,
her way.
yield. That's it.
Yeah.
And then then that's sort of like and then that sets her up for when she sees the devastation. She realizes, so she switches sides, and then you have that fantastic side arc with Steiner,
Mm.
where it's like it's I mean the whole thing where it's like a love letter that was meant for neither of them, and they completely fell for it.
That bit is so
And then you
funny.
have that fantastic sequence in Alexandria where it's the two of them against back to back against it's fantastic. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that whole sequence. I love the whole game. It's such a good game.
And
Oh,
with that, I
yes.
think we should do a little bit more music. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to complete the thought, I only very recently learned. I can't, or maybe I forgot. Steiner was the one that gave her the eye patch, took her eye out in a duel.
Okay, I wasn't aware of
Okay.
that.
It's
Is
just
that okay? Interesting.
just which is just because I mean you go through. Steiner is an incredible character, and I think younger players don't appreciate him much. As much as because he's a bumbling middle-aged man in rusty tin armor. Why would you? But uh but he's probably become one of my favorite characters in Final Fantasy now.
Yeah.
But you always get this impression that he's like, why is this guy even kept around? He's clearly nowhere near as good as Beatrix and their and her soldiers. But just this guy and
Mm.
his 12 dipshits. Um, and but no, apparently he is very competent. He's also just a bit of an oaf.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
uh,
I
I
I loved learning that there was a time where him and Beatrix were the same character, and then they separated the bumbling oaf and the goddess general into two separate characters.
then they
And
fell in
For the
love.
incredible
best.
decision, great decision.
I had
Yeah.
no idea about that. Holy shit! That's
Yeah,
an
definitely the best decision they made for those two
oh.
characters.
So they split them apart, and then they spend the rest of the game trying to get back together.
All right, so we'll do some more music. So first track I have is Crystal World. Then I have Ukulele de Chocobo. Then I have Hunter's Chance, and the last track is Hilda, the Airship. fantastic.
Oh,
I don't think anybody does an airship theme better than Nobuo Uematsu.
I know.
Because I was
No,
just
of
sort of
course,
thinking
certainly not.
through like the
I
ones we've talked
I
about
keep
before.
I
Go ahead.
keep a whole playlist of just sort of uh, airship themes from various games, whether they are the backdrop to traveling in an airship, or uh, like or an airship is the backdrop for like a fighting game stage, or or in an action platformer, and
Okay.
like the list is pretty long. Airships, it turns out, are a very popular setting in video games,
Yeah,
and that one is honestly the number one for me. It's just so good.
yeah.
It's
It's
rousing, it's magical. That opening moment, that's like listening to it now as it traveled back and forth throughout my headphones from ear to ear. And then just sort of like the rest of the tune comes in.
mm,
It what it reminded me of is not it doesn't sound like this, but it reminded me of like when 80s fantasy had just sort of like a kind of title track that was rousing. Like I'm specifically thinking of Never Ending Story here. And it's
mm.
sort of like meant to like carry you through like emotionally the whole journey. And I feel like it's so successful is because like wherever you're going, you're something crazy is gonna fucking happen there, and you know it truly is like adventure in sort of like the classic sense of it being like a mix of wonder and horror. And yeah, it's so good. I have a hard time remembering the tracks that played before it because I was just so swept away. But the Crystal World, also a fave. Just incredible soundtrack.
Crystal
All
World
right,
is
I'm
great.
done.
I just I like the way it sort of it brings in the prelude, that sort of that classic Final Fantasy intro theme as part of it. It's just a nice little callback. And Hunter's Chance is like it's what probably my favorite track, the entire soundtrack. Um, like that whole sequence where it plays is great. Um,
What's going
the
on during Hunter's Chance again?
so it's when you're doing the
Festival of the Hunt in
Festival of
Yumblum.
the Hunt, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so
It's
it's like
kind of like the sort of like the running of the bull in
yeah,
I don't know which part of Spain, but in where they literally let a wild bull loose in the streets, and everyone runs for their lives, and they do the same thing in Limblom. They let monsters loose on the streets, and participants literally just, it's a contest to see who can kill the most, and also they're categorized by points and stuff like that. So
yeah.
yeah, sorry, Tom, go.
Whole sequence. So it's like it's not just a battle theme. It's like when you're running around on the map, everything. So it's like there's just like it's very energetic and like it's great. And like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I played that track previously on the video game bands episode. I always
Oh,
try and find an
nice.
excuse to include it because it's just yeah, it's one of my favorite Final Fantasy tracks of all time. It's
Hmm.
really up there at the top for me. Like it's so good.
Just as a set piece too in the game, it's great because it's very memorable, because you have messages flashing up on the screen, because you have an announcer speaking over
Mm,
a sound system, uh reporting the current standings, and so you have the names of each of the hunters, and then so whatever, Zidane, Freya, and Vivi are all taking part, and
yeah.
so you can see how each of them is doing, and it's great to see. It's like, oh hell yeah, Vivi's in the lead, let's go, and then and literally, and then just like because it takes place across a number of the different scenes and screens in the city, and so you run from each one to the next, and you have the encounter monsters on the screen, you have other hunters around, and there's just ones where you enter from stage left, and start running up, you run across, then you just see Vivi running the opposite direction, being chased by a wild boar. It's
It's a really fun sequence. I do enjoy that, like that. Much like the airship, actually, like it's sort of the last of these sort of little mini game sequences in Final Fantasy games. Um, Whereas like in later games, they would just start to sort of separate them out into like different gameplay modes, rather than just having this kind of stuff happen as part of the plot, like in Final Fantasy 7 and 8, where they would do that quite a bit as well. But yeah, it's like again, it's just more of this sort of end of an era type vibe to this whole game, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about the airships there as well, it's just like there are no actual airships after this game. Like
yeah, I mean,
this is the last game with, like, obviously the you have the Celsius in Final Fantasy X, but that's just a map node with,
yeah,
and
it's
like this
it's your
isn't
fast
really.
travel point usually because like
Yeah.
because there is no overworld and you do not get to control the airship. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it is not the same thing at all.
Yeah, and I've no major issue with that as such. Like, I think that's fine for the game the 10 is, but like it is like this is the last game with a proper airship where you get to fly around the world. I guess 15 has the car, but that's not really the same.
No, the car is very different.
Yeah, they should have just given you a flying car by the end of it, to be honest.
I mean, I think it's some sort of emotional mix of the road trip with the pals, combined with the wonder of the airship. As I think of it, it's in my mind, it's always Setzer's airship.
Mm,
But something like that, where it's just like this big group home, would be very
yeah,
welcome. Um, but yeah. It's
yeah, I think.
it's incredible. I honestly miss the minigame aspect of our RPGs of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII, the remakes have them, and they're
Mm,
so welcome. Every time they're just like, "All right, we're making cupcakes or something," Lord knows what, and you have to. They have this little moment just for that, like the squats mini games, stuff like that. That some are in the original Final Fantasy VII, some are not.
I
yeah.
think
But yeah, it,
I think that that like that was a very big part of why Undertale was such a hit, was because uh there are so many parts of that game that is just all manner of different mini games and sort of situational mechanics. Even the battles themselves are all have different spins on them. So like no two boss fights are the same.
yeah.
And like and now that you say it, a lot of the more modern RPGs, seem kind of sterile by comparison. They don't have those little things that gave them the charm and the personality that from the ones from the ones from say like the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, and it's stuff like, in Dragon Quest, they have the casino and things like that. They have they have some side things, but they feel like such side elements.
Yeah.
Probably some kind of coliseum. They're not front and center like they used to be. And I
Afterthoughts.
think Undertale, and I don't know about Deltarune, but I have to imagine shows that the children yearn for miniature games. And I think it makes sense. They're right too.
I think it's like I mentioned, like the games do a lot of modern games do still have mini games, but they're sort of they're not integrated into the plot like they were for these for this sort of era of Final Fantasy and era of JRPGs in general, where like um they felt
Maybe
the need to make these games longer in their plot, so they were like, okay, we'll throw this in here so that it goes on a little bit longer.
I think maybe this is a misuse of the word, but they're a bit more diegetic in in those
Yeah,
games because they're blended into the sort of the world, the settings, the scenes, and the system they already have. So it's as opposed to just a completely separate mode that you dip in and out of, or
Yeah.
it's just like it.
Or where you
it
gotta fucking go get a battle pass and fucking six
yeah,
different currencies to do the casino mode or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah,
it feels very much kind of like, it rather than being a fun time like in these, it's way more padding. I think of stuff like uh the worst mini game in my mind. I'm kind of pulling this off the top of my ass here, but is poker in the first Watch Dogs, where you're just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Why are we even playing this miserable game? And I think well of Watch Dogs, and even then, it's a pretty stupid mini game.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, just like, I was just tossing poker in here for the freaks. I don't know, because we can, because this game needs to have 4 more hours.
Yeah.
As opposed to, stuff like this where it's just like they're just constantly breaking up the game. I think they understand that the battles are uh not, I don't think they feel they're tedious, but they
Mm.
understand that you need to be doing more
Yeah.
than just the battles. Like, I watched the end of this game and kind of going up to the final battle with Necron. I they encountered a Kraken, and it just like took so long to defeat, and it was just like they were really just walking through like the last two screens and had like two interminable battles, and it has not aged very well at all. And but like I mean, there's a lot to love, of course,
Yeah.
but it makes the game so much more compelling that you have things like this.
on
Yeah.
that
These
point,
hunts.
actually, just to just going back to what you said earlier about how the game just feels so much more the presentation is just so tight and well rounded, and just like the whole of the first disc of Final Fantasy IX is a very straightforward, continuous series of events. Like
Yeah.
the action follows the same party from the from place to place. It wasn't until just before the end of disc one where the party diverges and they go to different places.
Mm.
And it's just and the action is sort of broken up by little rest stops. Um, and
Yeah.
uh,
There's a very
and
deliberate pacing to
and
the
there's a
game.
and it's and like and like there's very good building of tension in places like the village of Dali and so on, and leading into the sort of the set piece with the black waltzes, a fantastic little group of bosses. Like
Oh yeah.
they
That whole
there's
sequence. Yeah.
before arriving at Lindblom, and then Lindblom you have of course you have that it's probably the biggest respite we've had so far. Then you have the festival of the hunt, and it's a bit where it's a last sort of bit of fun before the real plot sort of kicks into high gear. But
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, yeah.
and one thing as well that I actually never hear anyone talk about these, and I think it was something that only this game did, and I think it was very effective in just sort of breaking up or preventing any sort of sense of monotony, and that was the active time events where you could
I was going to mention those, yeah, because you just
um
reminded me of them when you were talking about the early parts of the game.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like just like where it just like either like you say the party is all over the village, like they've gone wandering to do different things. It's like, what's Vivi up to, what's Dagger up to?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've just like, oh geez, I hope the the rest of the oh what was the name of the thief gang?
The Tantalus, is that what they were
Tantalus.
called?
I hope
Yeah.
the other members of Tantalus are doing okay. And then you get a little pop up cut away to Marcus is on his way in, through the woods to to save Blank from his petrification and all kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it was great. It was just great little sort of cutaways that just that make plot points from much earlier in the game uh keeps them in mind, so that when they do so when they do come back to the to the forefront of the action, they're
Yeah.
not jarring or out of place because they're kept fresh in your minds. There's
Yeah.
a really effective way of of covering all of the character, and also it also just gave room for so much little personality, like watching Steiner and Vivi go off on their own into different locations and interact with the locals in their different ways is just one of the it's just such a fantastic way to develop their characters. And
Yeah.
there isn't another game like 9, and it's in a game full of other in a series full of other games with the same title. So
Yeah. I do think that, like, yeah, the possibly the single strongest point of this game is the characters. Like, they're so well drawn, like, just from, like, possibly, like, the best cast of any Final Fantasy game. Like, I'd say maybe 6 might edge it out just a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, just again, like, the way it sort of draws these characters, and like, gives them so much personality, and like gives you so much time to get to know them, and like those active time events are such a good little way to get these little moments between characters that, like, might not make sense if you were to just sort of present them in a linear fashion, or to, like, because you've sort of engaged the player in pressing a button to see the cutscene. I think it sort of makes them a lot more meaningful to people, because they've sort of interacted with the game in order to see this, rather than just sort of watching it happen.
so only a
So,
handful
like,
of them were
you get a bit
mandatory
of,
as well. Most of them were completely optional.
yeah.
But the fact that you had the option at all was great.
It was cool, yeah, and like you say, you didn't need to do it, but everybody did do it anyway, and it's sort of a funny
Yeah.
little, like, people talk about optional stuff in games as being optional, but they generally aren't really that optional,
Yeah.
especially for something like this. And like, it's such a fun way to present a story, especially when you've got all these characters. I would say probably the weakest characters maybe Amaranth, who shows up too late in the game to do anything.
And
Just
that's saying a lot, considering one of the other characters is Quina.
Yeah, but like,
Uh,
Queena gets a
Like
really good little arc for herself, or for themselves, and just like,
themselves. Yeah,
it's
we
just
live in
like,
an era. We live in an era where we do not need to use he/she anymore. We can just say they.
yeah.
yeah.
I did remember, like, playing the game the last time. I was like, wow, they're really just straining to just use he/she
Well,
every time in every dialogue box, when they could have
well,
just used, like,
to
a
be
singular they.
yeah, right. Although
No, I
I do like
appreciate them respecting she/he's pronouns.
Yeah.
I don't think it was quite so much respecting as as really just like
Sure,
we
sure.
don't
I'm
we
joking.
don't know what the fuck this thing is. We're not gonna make assumptions.
I'll put a link in the notes, but there's that James A. Caster bit about the word men don't know, and it's the word them.
I know exactly which one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fucking great. Dude.
The
But yeah,
I just to chime in on the characters, I just to agree. I think that the writing in this game is fucking incredible. Like, I feel like there's a lot of depth in each of the characters that weaves together well. I feel like Quina, however you pronounce it, it's works for me, because what you want in every group of people are just like 3 people who are deeply considering the problems of their life, and then
yeah.
a fourth person to just be like, "Who wants chili dogs? I do."
I want to eat some frogs.
But then
It's
but
perfect.
But then on top of that, they actually then managed to make Quina actually matter, because uh, they uh, they actually knew Vivi's grandfather, and there's a little bit in
Oh
Vivi's
yeah.
house where they actually meet, and it's so like and that does something for Vivi's arc. So Quina is a better character than Amaranth, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, 100%.
I'll tell you
And
this
even
though.
like Freya is such a good character. Like, her biggest issue is that her story ends 10 hours into the game, and then there's no more story for her to have.
I was about to say is that if I could if I could pick out only one thing that I wish got was fleshed out more, it was Freya and Fratley. That just kind of like
just ends,
it
and
just
then that's
it
it.
just it didn't go anywhere after Clara, and then the next thing we see, we hear of it is in the literal ending of the game.
Yeah. When
And
you
it's just
find out they're just sort of like trying to rebuild their relationship, despite the
but
fact that he has no memory.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just like, and it's just like, why doesn't he have a memory? What happened? Like, it's just there's just nothing there, and I just there isn't even enough for fan wankery. It's just yeah, that's a pity. She was a bit of a casualty,
Yeah.
but alas,
It it was funny to me that you mentioned that because about Amaranth, because when I went back and started going through this game, like so much came flooding back and about the characters, and I was like, I have no memory of this Amaranth person. Who is this in the game? I don't. And then I kind of forgot to look into it, and I'm just like, oh yeah, and this is the eighth party member. I forget. I didn't remind myself.
he was a guy that that was the victim of Zidane's comic relief at one point, and he was a bit pissy about it for a while, and then
Hmm.
he worthy opponented his way into the party, and that's kind of really all there was to that.
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
is sort of,
yeah, makes
yeah.
sense.
A bit of a boring trope as well. Just that sort of like, I'm looking for somebody who's better than me kind of nonsense. It's just like, okay. But like offers nothing to the party, is not really worth including by the time you get him at the end of the game, and because of the way the skill system works, like you have to put so much work into actually making him useful if you want to use him.
Hmm.
Because you just have to sit around and grind AP for all the shit that you missed with them.
Like
Yeah.
Steiner's
um,
already in the game, so
yeah, like there's
Mhm.
I've had runs where I've tried to use him, but it's absolutely not
Yeah.
worth it.
I had
Feels.
a I had a run where I actually beat Ozma using only the physical characters, and without having done the fairy quest, so I wasn't able to attack him directly. So it
Oh
was just
jeez.
spamming abilities. So I had
Yeah.
Amaranth, putting in legwork there, but it's I
Yeah.
don't recommend that. It was awful.
It really feels like there was a slot open because they intended to use Beatrix or somebody else, and then they decided something else because this game went through so many different rewrites.
Mm,
But they were just like, we have programmed the game. It needs 8 people for the final boss, or the whole game breaks. Because it's and they were just like, yeah, this guy, yeah, sure, whatever. It's
yeah.
slot him in.
Yeah, because like, the issue that, 'cause, I mean, the game has no shortage of guest characters, but all of the guest characters have the same job as one of the main characters. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and the game was very adamant about having 8 characters with 8 unique job classes.
Hmm.
It was it was very rigidly, this character is job. That is it. They were
Yeah, he's just there to be the monk class and that's it. Like
this isn't your G Chance Final Fantasy V. There are no there is no job system. You take
yeah.
what you get. But I also but I did think that I do think that the way that the characters are designed uh give them all a particular function that they can serve, and they do them
Hmm.
Yeah.
well.
Absolutely. Yeah, so speaking of characters, we've just got a bunch of character themes this time. So I have Freya's theme, Vivi's theme, Garnet's theme, Kuja's theme, and then not really a character theme, but sort of like a theme of all the characters, I suppose, called "You're Not Alone." fantastic. I will say just talking about the characters, like one of the cruelest things this game does to you in the start is sort of introducing you to Vivi and like making you fall in love with him, and then just sort of dropping his old deal on you. And it's just like it's such a gut punch.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, you know, and in the end it works out. Like he's sort of, you know, again, this is a game about legacy.
Yeah.
The
Definitive ending to his story, and that's like, that's
I
fine, but just the way it drops that shit on you in the first few hours of the game, having just let you spend a few hours with him running around the city and just sort of again,
And
just like really falling in love with this character.
yeah, and well,
it's
he's very child coded as well.
I mean he's
Like, you know,
9.
I mean, yeah, but you know, his whole deal is more than just being, you know, a little puppet boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's and so you're like going around and doing like collecting the cards and everybody being shoo go along now, or doing the jump rope and stuff. And then it's very easy to fall in love with Vivi and sort of like really great at manipulating you.
It
Yeah.
is it is a testament to to just how well designed the character is, and how and how skilled they were with like with animating him in with his body language and everything, that a character with no face and 2 dots for eyes, you could and you can see visible like fear, sorrow, and emotion in the character, like the because like yeah, after everything you just said, and then they and all leading up to um the sequence in Dali, which is very early in the game still, but that whole sequence is harrowing for the poor
Yeah, it's
kid. Like everything from seeing these these just literal copies of him being mass produced,
yeah,
and then the black waltzes, just
and the waltzes
everything
as
to do
well.
with the
Yeah.
black waltzes, number 3 especially, it just and just your heart breaks for him in that moment, and it's incredible that they were able to pull that off with a character that has no face.
I absolutely. Well, and I think too, it's like important that I think the Black Mage look, outside of maybe the Chocobos, was probably the most recognizable part of Final Fantasy, like from game to game. You know, I'd seen that referenced a fair bit, and sort of like was a little bit of a shorthand for just sort of like mages in general for a little while. And certainly they're not the only character to do that. There's the guy in He-Man, I think it is, that kind of looks like that.
Oh
But
yeah.
to me, and I think to a lot of people I knew at the time, Vivi was sort of like represented all of Final Fantasy in a way. And sort of like to have this like deeply emotionally involved story with him. And like I in a way, like, you know, Vivi is the main character of the game, even more so than Zidane. I would say, you know, it's certainly very arguable, but I think that there is emotionally that kind of connects. I don't know, but yeah.
Even Nobuo Uematsu's in-house band, it was called the Black Mages,
Exactly.
which and just that title alone, it automatically conjures the image of Vivi, or the Black
Yeah.
Mage in your mind, because it's just an extremely iconic design.
Yeah, I think it's apart from when like Garnet wears her robe, it's
I
the most explicit reference, I think, to like the original 4 classes, or the original classes in Final Fantasy 1, for um like you don't get anything much more explicit than that, and her white mage robe.
I wish that we could have, that we could have kept the robe as some
Yeah.
sort of. You just Garnet in the white mage robe is just, yeah. I was only 15 at the time. You realize, but just absolutely gorgeous character.
Yeah.
And yeah, on that note, actually worth noting that the party, once such as it is, once it emerges from the woods, is the original party from Final Fantasy One: a fighter, a thief, a black mage, and a white mage.
Yeah. No, that's
Not
clever.
not my original party. I'm not putting a thief in my
The
the
default.
NES Final Fantasy One. I know that's the default.
I'm sorry. Do you not like ninjas? What's wrong with you?
I not as much as I like black belts. Such a money save. Like you need that money, buddy.
So
the shit before the elf prince is expensive.
Yeah.
A question I haven't asked before is what part of the game does that last track "We're Not Alone" from?
Pretty much towards the end, like when Zidane has the reveal of like his whole backstory, and he just sort of dissociates for a while, and like it plays through like a bit of a dungeon and like any battles that you go through in there and everything, and like as Mike was saying during the break, then it's sort of like your characters are sort of trying to bring you back, sort of to sort of
he's having a bit of an existential crisis, and it's
it's a crisis, and like it's part of the theme of the game again of like of identity, and like are you your background, are you like what brought you here, are you your parents, are you whatever, or are you the person that you're choosing to be, and like it's just sort of reminding Zidane that like he's not just like because like what is it that like they're sent over to sort of to drain the planet of energy.
He's the angel of death. He was created as an angel of death. It's literally Dragon Ball Z. He's little monkey boy sent to Earth to wipe out the population so that his planet can assimilate theirs.
Yeah.
Everything is Dragon Ball Z. God damn.
Yeah. So it's sort of like he's trying to reconcile this aspect that he's just discovered that he has a purpose, and sort of trying to reconcile that then with that, and like you're not alone, obviously being like the party reminding him that that he is more than just that.
Yeah, it takes Garnet to snap him out of it in the end. But yeah, no, I mean, like it's a very heartening scene though, because you get like, I mean, you even get somebody like Steiner, who has been giving him nothing but shit the entire game, and but then outright admits he's grown to respect him, and he says he will follow him to the ends of the earth, because I got to make sure that you're the right man for the princess.
Yeah.
It's it's a great sequence, just because it's one of those Final Fantasy sequences where this arc music is playing over it that dominates for that stays present for the entire scene, even when they shift into the scripted battles with each of the new characters. That music is You're Not Alone is still playing over the entire sequence, and which is, so while you only ever hear the song one time in the game, it really sticks with you because it's a damn good song, and B, because you're gonna hear several loops of it before you're done.
Yeah. Well, I do have to agree with the song that that sort of like very moving, pensive guitar is the sound of one reckoning with their identity. Like that's what's playing when I'm 14 and looking in the mirror and going, "Who am I?"
No, it's really good. Yeah. Like I say, I have issues with the last or like the last third of the game, especially that final disc. But like that whole sequence is hard to fuck with. It's really really good.
Oh yeah.
And it's like it's not like every Final Fantasy, and every story has that sort of like Dark Night of the Soul moment. but it just handles it so well in this game that
like it's like if you're not paying attention, it might it might come out as seem a bit jarring because it's very out of out of character for Zidane, who's this this very sort of vibrant, cheerful, like energetic character to suddenly just just crash into into despair like this. But again, if you're paying attention, though, you realize that he's actually pretty deeply insecure. He thinks he's way hotter shit than he is.
yeah.
He's putting on he puts on a lot of it. It's very much a sort of like a a fake it till you make it kind of confidence. And I mean, I remember like he had a. I remember there's a sequence in the game, a flashback in the game, not far from there where he's trying to recall his childhood and how he doesn't remember ever having parents or anything like that. He just remembers being taken in by Baku and Tantalus, and Baku basically beating the shit out of him for most of his young life. And it's an upbringing of I assume of it qualifies, but no, the kid's got issues. He's just way better at hiding it than Cloud or Squall.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with Zidane as well is that like his character up to that point is very forward looking. Like he's not concerned with the past. He's always like, we're gonna, he's always looking to what's happening next, and then he's sort of confronted with this concept of fate that he's never really sort of had to deal with before, along with sort of the that the sort of the reveal of who he actually was and what isn't, like that sort of just the jarring nature of that. I think for him, just sort of the whiplash of it is just sort of sends him into a spiral that that other stuff generally would just sort of roll off his back, but this way it couldn't. He had to reckon with it, and that's a cool little character beat.
I think too that's very fitting for the stated goal of Final Fantasy IX being a game that's like looking backwards on like what the series is, and Final Fantasy IX trying to be the most Final Fantasy of the Final Fantasies while being separate from the Final Fantasy, because that's what Final Fantasy is. And because so much of of the series is having these character moments that are they're pensive on some level and going through a journey that's very like classical, but like Final Fantasy really kind of like is always putting mustard on it.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy IV, like Cecil's transformation, I was like 10 when I played that, and that's probably the first time where like a story beat like really hit. Like up until that point is like, oh, Darth Vader is Luke's father. Wow, isn't that interesting? But it didn't like hit me in the nuts like it did like Cecil's transformation did.
I think the one thing that made that particularly effective is that in order for that to work, you had to actually you actually had to change your way of thinking about because it happens in a battle, and your instinct your instinct in a battle is to hit the attack button, and
that's a great point.
Hitting the and repeatedly hitting the attack button in that fight will get you killed. But he just says, where I remember the specter of Cecil that you're fighting. I think he says he keeps repeating the phrase, "A true paladin will sheathe his sword," and so you press defend instead, and he becomes a paladin, and it's just like, and because it involved you in that moment, it hits so much harder.
100%, and I think so that's true in so much of Final Fantasy IX. Like each character's vibe is them taking their lot and just like really taking a real fucking hard look at it in a very kind of well written, believable way that it comes out of the gameplay. Right, you're doing things with these characters, and then Steiner will reflect about what is it to have this kind of duty? Am I going to blindly follow that sort of stuff?
Mm.
And I think it resonates all the way back to one. I think one has a very rudimentary kind of like journey of understanding with you kind of realizing that you're part of that time loop that has always meant to be, and you have this fate from the very
Mm.
beginning of the game, from the very first boss. And it rips. I don't think it's not like it necessarily drops the conceit
Yeah.
after
It's
9, but I feel like 1 and 9 and the journeys in between are such a like great kind of like series of games.
Mm.
incidentally the guy who mind fucked Zidane and put him into that heroic blue screen of death. That was Garland, the who in 9 is the creator of him and his whole race of I
Mm.
think genome people. And that's the first boss in Final Fantasy 1.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, that's right. That's right. That's a good point.
I think anyone who well, I think it's people might actually be a bit more familiar with Garland, Final Fantasy 1 and all that nowadays, because we live in a post
Stranger
Stranger
in
of
Paradise.
Paradise timeline,
Yeah.
and which is bizarrely a sort of a prequel to Final Fantasy 1, where he was Jack Garland, and it's that game. I'm so glad it exists.
Yeah.
I hope to play it. Everything I've seen of it is just a wild ride. But yeah, the and that's just and again that's just that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the other stuff. Like, I mean, for instance, yeah, actually, it may as well, since we're on that point, Garland in the beginning of Final Fantasy 1 abducts the Princess of Cornelia,
Mm-hmm.
Princess Sarah, and and your first mission as the Warriors of Light is to rescue her from Garland. There is a set, like if you return to Madain Sari, the summoner village that Garnet's originally from and where Aiko is from,
Yeah.
very late into the game after a certain point, and return to the summoner's mural,
Yeah.
the
You
Eidolon
can find her
wall.
real name.
Yeah, because it shows
Yeah.
you when when you visit this time, you get to visit. It shows you a perspective where you're actually able to look fully at the wall and you can examine it, and you can find sort of remnants of references to her and her mother who fled when the place was destroyed. Her mother's name is Jane, which is the name of the Queen of Cornelia, and
Mhm.
her own name is Sarah, which is the name of the princess.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
okay.
that
Nice.
I think isn't Cornelia the name of the princess in the play?
I
Or am
don't remember.
I don't quite
No.
remember. But like it's just it's just full of, like, I mean, they were very, very heavy handed with that stuff. So
Yeah.
Good,
um
good. There's nothing more I love than pointing at something and being like, I
Oh,
remember
I mean,
that.
like you're like, Final Fantasy 9 is the DiCaprio pointing game of the Final Fantasy series, right? There are like just like you like, I mean, like there are dozens, if not hundreds, of moments where you can point at the screen and go, I know what that is.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to fault it for that, given the age of it. Like, I feel like if you did that now with every Final Fantasy game, firstly, you wouldn't have that many more games to actually go through to actually
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
to do it with. But also, like, like that style, like the idea of referencing something in a world where we have the internet is very different to referencing stuff that you sort of barely remember from your from your childhood before you could look it all up in a wiki, you know. You know, and like obviously we talked about earlier about how this, you know, that the Final Fantasy games of our childhood were not those games because we didn't get them, but like, you know, but just that the concept of being able to take a game like this and sort of constantly pepper it with references and you know, remember this style jokes and dialogue and stuff that you could get away with it then in a way that you can't now. People are much more savvy about stuff like that. But at the same time, then like it's constantly trying to do it in a way that integrates it into makes it important to Final Fantasy IX as much as it is to any other thing. And like, you know, Final Fantasy is a game that's is a series has always been very self-referential anyway. So
it's always
it doesn't feel out of place. Say again, sorry?
Yeah.
It's always, like, for example, like, you know, how there's a guy named Sid in every game, and how they keep naming, you know, they keep naming a bunch of guys Wedge and Biggs after the Star Wars guys, and there's always there's these recurring things, but like they were never, you know, like, you know, 9 is the most heavy-handed they ever were with it, and that was it was very, very clearly the point in 9 because it was effectively it was a celebration. It was the end of the PlayStation era, and they wanted to do a whole sort of thing about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's the number one argument for why Final Fantasy is still worthy today, is because that even though they do have these touchstones, like, you know, you always expect to see a Cid, there's going to be chocobos, stuff like that. You know, the games are sometimes to a fault, you know, they are wildly different. I think people really would have loved for Final Fantasy 16 to be way more of a reference fest. I think that game would have been received a lot better if it was just like, look at the mages, look at the white mages, and the fact that it's like such a kind of like more stark, you know, action RPG, like very unashamed of that, is why I think Final Fantasy 16 is actually fucking great.
Reese,
it's one of the best Final Fantasies.
You see, Reese, that's what Final Fantasy 14 is for.
Believe me, I know. Believe me.
Like, no, it's like, no, the Final Fantasy 14 is like, hey, you guys remember this thing? And they make an entire raid boss out of a thing from from like one part of one game, and it's just like, I hear it's done really well. I just unfortunately do not have that kind of time or attention to spare.
No, nor should anybody. But I have gone. I haven't done the most recent patches, but I have beat the most recent expansion, which is very Final Fantasy IX coded. It has you go to a place called Alexandria that has a similar deal. It's not exactly the same, but it's sort of dealing with the same sort of, you know, doomed kind of fate narratives in a lot of parallels, and there's a lot of music callback stuff like that. I bet if I replayed it now that I've refreshed,
that's not where you do the Alexander raid, is it?
No, the Alexander raid is way before. Alexandria is a dungeon in the newest one.
Okay, so they'd already blown Alexander earlier, so they had to.
Oh yeah, which was a fucking great raid, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, we'll go to the last block of music. So just mostly battle themes, and yeah, we've got Battle 1, Battle 2, Assault of the Silver Dragons, and the final battle theme. absolutely one of my favorite final boss themes ever. Even within the Final Fantasy series, which is a fucking treasure trove of incredible final boss themes.
Yeah, really incredible. Mike, you mentioned the moaning, and that definitely hit a nerve as well. Just really great chaos, really sinister, while also being like, I don't know, like there is an upbeatness to it, just being like, this is the end, this is the final moment, we're fueling you a little bit. It
Yeah,
rips.
Yeah, it's out of it's one of the more unsettling ones for sure because of that element of it. And
mm,
like I mean, and like the prelude to it right beforehand, where it's just is is that like tenfold. There's so much like agonized moaning, and it's a very weird sequence, and that took me a very long time to even remotely comprehend how it's relevant to everything that happened
yeah,
prior. Um, as giant space flea from nowhere in Final Fantasy goes, Necron is one of the more telegraphed ones, I think.
yeah. Yeah, and it's a tough one to sort of to justify, I think, at times. But at the same time, that is like, yeah, it's like he's been summoned by Kuja for because Kuja's incapable of admitting defeat. So just like all this negative energy sort of summons him. It's again, it still feels like a bit of an ass pull, but they do try and justify it to some degree. I think it's similar to like X Death in Final Fantasy V, where it's just like this tree from another dimension has just decided that it's going to destroy everything, and you're just going to have to deal with that now at the end of this game.
It's, I mean, like
um,
it was ever thus. I mean,
yeah,
Final Fantasy One, you get to the end of the Chaos Shrine, and you find Garland, the dude you killed at the very start of the game, and he turns into the embodiment of chaos.
yeah,
Final Fantasy Two, you defeat the evil emperor. His soul goes to hell. He proceeds to immediately conquer it and then immediately return as the emperor of hell. Uh, Final Fantasy
yeah,
Four, Zeromus.
yeah.
What?
You're just
It's
you gotta escalate at the final battle. Yeah, it's for sure. The So it's probably something worth mentioning as well that we didn't really talk about is just like the importance of like the CG cutscenes in this era of Final Fantasy as being like a massive tool for their storytelling. To the point that like even the remakes got little cutscenes stuck into them for like the PS for the PS1 releases of the Final Fantasy one through six. Basically they all got like little cutscenes except for three, which didn't get a release here for some reason. um but just like the other track we played that wasn't the battle track was the Assault of the Silver Dragons, and like that whole sequence is so fucking cool. Where you're just like on your airship trying to fight these silver dragons, and Kuja's like commanding an army of the dragons to fight you. It's just like it's a very very cool cutscene.
Silver
um
Dragon, just like, and like it's just the way that that's built up is because like when Kuja's introduced, he's he uses a silver dragon as a mount, and then
mm,
and then prior to fighting Kuja finally on Terra, like he makes you fight one of them,
yeah,
and it is not an easy boss,
yeah,
and and then suddenly you're trying to approach this this bizarre chaos dimension with the airships, and
yeah,
the silver dragons are there's enough silver dragons to block out the sky.
yeah.
Like that, that's escalation.
Yeah, there's dozens of them, and they're just like, yeah. We did lose something, I think, in the transition from like being able to just make a game look as good as the FMVs. because like even like the next game, Final Fantasy X, like there's a marked difference between like how the FMVs look and how in-game graphics look. Even as good as the in-game graphics do look, and how good the pre-rendered or the real-time stuff looks. Like you just couldn't beat the pre-rendered like the graphics in those days. And I do think we sort of lost something by now being able to sort of do everything in engine. It is a little bit sort of there's a little bit of magic lost in it, I think.
It's something that that I hear remarked upon a lot these days, especially because we live in an era where graphical fidelity is so high as that many would tell you that it is effectively peaked, and any increment that is achieved at this point is negligible compared to the kind of leaps that they made between the console generations. It's just to the point that like it's like just stop aiming for photorealism and just focus on a well executed aesthetic. Because otherwise it'll look like it'll age like milk in 5 years. But the like the thing, and so like the fact that you're able to do that now by just rendering everything, running everything in engine and all that kind of thing, it's just there is something lost in it because before that, because especially because they now games are like like tens if not even dozens if not hundreds of gigabytes to and like whereas back then you had like I mean it was a big deal that these Final Fantasy games were on 4 discs like because like memory was a huge constraint, and those constraints forced the developers to find ways to work within those confines and find creative solutions that would enable them to achieve their vision while staying within those parameters. And now that the parameters are gone, there's nothing to like to force them to really buckle down and actually think about what they're doing. And also, which also means that development cycles take just spiral ever onwards, and games cost millions to make, and whereas again, what is it? It was a sort of a necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing. And we got some and some of the best games I've ever played were games where they had to find really, really creative ways to make the thing work. And
I think too, so much of it is just like the baked in pacing of it all. Like like a Final Fantasy cutscene would pop up back in the day, and I would just kind of like lean back and like clap with delight, just because it was gonna be something cool. And I think you can have that with in a lot of different ways too. It was like so cool the way it was set apart. Like I think like I have a similar reaction even to like long Metal Gear Solid like codec calls, where that's just like there is no fidelity, but still kind of like once I sort of get in the groove of the Metal Gear story, I'm so ready to sit my white ass down and listen to whatever Snake has to say. So I don't know. It's just I think it's with the ability to do everything, they don't know how to structure things in a nearly as compelling way without putting a lot more work into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll finish up there. Any final thoughts on Final Fantasy IX? I think it's starting to get a bit late, so we'll wrap up here, I think.
We barely even scratched the surface. Like,
yeah,
there was so like just every block of music, I just kept thinking to myself, oh, why didn't I suggest this? Why didn't I suggest that? We could you could do 2 or 3 more podcasts on this, and we'd still barely cover like so much of what's in this game. It's just that rich a game. And And to be honest, I'd be down for another episode on this. I don't know about you guys.
Well,
Yeah,
they're
no.
doing according to the rumor, they're doing a remake of 9. So
I have heard that. But I have only heard that. So, and
we'll see. I think that there's room for it to return to this at some point. My final thought on Final Fantasy VII: it's good.
what about 9, Bo?
Yeah, what about 9?
Oh, 9. I said 7. Well, it's good. Sorry.
Good night, everybody.
I'm flagging a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll say I'll have to agree with that controversial statement that Final Fantasy 9 is good. All right. So yeah, Mike, do you have anything you want to plug or tell people where they can find you online?
I don't do much with it. I mean, I am at the MiKenyan on Twitter, and I am MiKenyan on Blue Sky. But I go through very sporadic bouts of activity and in terms of posting things actually worth reading. So I'm just gonna plug Harpsiboard again because
All right.
the because her harp covers of the Final Fantasy 9 music is absolutely gorgeous. She's on Spotify and YouTube. I'll post links for the show notes.
Yeah, do.
And if you listened to this because you like Final Fantasy 9, do yourself a favor and listen to that, to those covers. They are absolutely beautiful.
Excellent. Reese, what you got going on at the moment?
Oh, you can check the show notes. It's been a long episode.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we can check the show notes for our links as well. You can find our links to our Patreon there if you want to throw us a bit of money just to help support the show. You can get higher bitrate downloads on the Patreon as well as some bonus episodes. I still have a bonus episode I need to get edited and put out there, and I'm sorry to Reese for being so lazy on this one. I'm usually really good about getting stuff edited and out, but I've been especially lazy about it. But it's hopefully next weekend or the weekend after. We'll see.
Now that I'm no longer moving, now I'm behind you.
Yeah, you just got to get on my ass to do it. Be like, fucking Tom, go and edit this episode. You dumbass.
Exactly. Don't worry. I'll be sending you WAV files in the middle of your night, yelling at you.
Fantastic. You can join our Discord if you want to just come and hang out and chat. Where I'm always paying attention to there. I'm just like waiting for people to chat so I can be a nuisance in that place. So come and hang out there. Last track we've got then is Vamo alla flamenco.
This is my favorite track.
Very good track, yeah.
This is a good one.
Really
this is the reason to do Chocobo Hot and Cold.
Yeah, to be fair. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks for joining us, Mike, and have a good one.